Welcome back to the broadcast. Post-traumatic stress disorder continues to headline our news, unfortunately, and recently it was mentioned in connection with the latest tragedy at Fort Hood. And since PTSD can be misunderstood by so many people, we have former U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter pilot Elizabeth McCormick with us now to share some insight. She serves on the board of Grace After Fire, which is a nonprofit that helps Texas veterans. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us. So I just think it's so cool that you're a Black Hawk pilot.
There weren't very many of us.
I'll bet. So you understand firsthand the stress that our veterans are under on a daily basis. Why is it so difficult for everybody to sort of recognize what they're going through when they get home?
It's just a big adjustment period that they all have to go through as they go from deployment mode and where they're full on and adrenaline all the time and you know, in harm's way, and then they come home and the family's all normal, everything's all normal, but that integration period is just really so key in how to adapt and become part of the unit again.
Now, I saw a very interesting interview last week on one of the cable news channels, and it was with someone who kept their identity secret, and they were saying at Fort Hood they just don't have a lot of resources. So how important are resources for these soldiers coming back from combat?
You know, as much time and preparation as we spend training to go into combat, we really should be spending almost as much time integrating them back in, and that's just not the case. Everything is about the operations tempo, and training for the next, what's next, let's train, and we forget the human piece of it, and to help them adjust.
So interesting.
I was just going to say, could you tell us more about Grace by Fire? Is it Grace Under Fire?
Grace After Fire.
Grace After Fire, Under Fire, For Fire. How did that start?
It's actually been around, I think, almost 10 years. And it started because there was just a gap between soldiers, and especially women soldiers, getting out of the military, soldiers, service, airmen, all branches, getting out of the military and really getting to the resources that they need. So, and then what the biggest thing is that when you get out of the military, you feel isolated. You don't really know anybody. No one understands your experiences. So what Grace After Fire has done is created a peer-to-peer support group where they can talk with other women veterans and create some community where they don't feel so isolated.
What are some signs of PTSD?
Well, there's many different signs, and some of the main ones that really are indicators the first is flashbacks. Do they have, you know, are they reliving experiences that aren't healthy for them?
No, wouldn't flashbacks be common, especially when you're in combat?
You know, it is common, but when it leads to, you know, it's sustained, it doesn't fade, it can become more severe, you know, it's that sustainability factor where it just doesn't seem to go away. So the other, you know, having that sustained depression and anxiety that just doesn't go away, having you know, isolation. That isolation is really a big thing because, you know, veterans will tend to think that it's only them, and they kind of hug into themselves and they withdraw from life.
What about denial? Because I can imagine there's some denial that comes along with these signs. And what does a family member do if they're seeing some of these signs but their loved one isn't necessarily responding to them?
Well, you know, denial is really common, and here's why. As a service member serving our country, it's all about country, it's all about duty, it's all about your job. You focus in on that piece of it, you lose your self-awareness. It's not about you. It's not about you as a person. So you become secondary, and then when you get out of the service, it's hard to gain that self-awareness back. So, you know, a lot of times it's not so much denial as they're just not even aware that they come across differently or they're feeling differently than what they would have before. So, and then the last indicator, there's more than this, but the last main indicator to watch for is, you know, are they getting paranoia? Do they always want to sit with their back? And I'll admit, I do this. I sit with my back against the wall and watch the door of a restaurant. restaurant.
My dad still does.
Yeah, I mean, I do too, and it's more just habit of being hyper aware of what's around you. But is it taking to extremes? Is it getting where you're paranoid of everything? And it's not just one of these indicators; it's how they layer and how they last, and are they getting better or are they not? But just because someone has these indicators doesn't mean they're going to be prone to violence. That's really, again, it's the extreme. It's more of the exception than the norm.
Now, Dawn kind of touched on this. If we see these signs in maybe a family member of ours who is a veteran, and they're maybe in denial about these warning signs that you've given us, how do we step in and help them? How do we step in and go, okay, here's what we need to do, here's how we need to recognize this, and how do we move past it?
The first thing is just to not allow the isolation to happen. Be a friend to them, be someone that they can talk to and they feel safe with. Then try to steer them towards Veterans Affairs, Veterans Services, or civilian.
Because sometimes that community can help them maybe feel like there's other men around me or other veterans around me that are like me and that are going through the same, kind of like, not to reference this, but like Alcoholics Anonymous, when they all go together, then they can they feel like they have a partner in crime a little bit. That is going through what they're going through.
I don't know about crime. But no, definitely. Get them around other veterans communities. There's organizations to join. Help them realize that they're not alone, that they have other people. Help them get to therapy and through a psychotherapist or a psychologist and medication are really the two main ways to treat. And it's not always that it's a lifelong condition. PTSD is more situational, and it's not just soldiers that suffer from PTSD. It can be anyone that's gone through a traumatic experience, like a rape, a medical emergency. Anything could possibly trigger this kind of situation.
Well, thank you so much for being here. At least we know now what to look for. We know that there are organizations like yours that can help. And thank you for just being here and kind of opening our eyes to something that's really a problem. Again, you can check out graceafterfire.org for details relating to veterans, especially for women. You often don't think of women having this problem, but they certainly do. We'll also have this link on our website at thebroadcasttv.com, and we are